Now, I just want to say welcome for all our audience and our perfect guest. So, could you please share with us why it's important for you to stand up against gender based violence?
Hi everyone, and I'm really excited to be part of the Girl Up Summit and warm, sending my greetings from Sri Lanka to everyone who's joined. Speaking about gender-based violence, I think I'm sure you all have heard so many conversations around gender equality, and just like how they highlighted that it is one of the greatest barriers that we face when realizing gender equality, one of the major issues that always come up in the list. And I think we have been lagging behind is preventing gender-based violence. For me, growing up as a girl, I did not know, I had no awareness about what gender-based violence was, or I had no formal education into, to start off with what gender, the meaning of gender. That really made me also face some kind of harassment, growing up accessing public transport, public spaces, but at that time, because I did not know what it is, I thought whether it's my fault or what's happening to me, is it wrong? Is it right? Why isn't anyone speaking up? So as I grew older and I had the opportunity to be part of Girl Guides, and then, learn about through non-formal education what this is, and that we must speak out and take action against it. And what's happening to us is a violation of basic human rights. It's as simple as that. So for me, it's really, really important to be able to speak out, to be able to share my knowledge, my awareness that I've gained through it, different forms of education about gender-based violence and how can we prevent it and how do we deal with it, how do we, make sure that it does not happen and we put a stop to it, to share it with so many more girls. Because when I started learning about gender-based violence and what it is and how does it happen and, what causes it, then you realize the kind of cases that's being reported. And that's only the number of cases that's reported. And I'm sure because of, different attributes, there are so many unreported cases. So that really, that's something really struck me. And I feel that it's very important that we have a voice and to kind of use all our platforms to educate everybody who needs to know about this, and also to make sure that it does not happen and that we could put an end to it.
So, of course, you have faced many barriers. Could you please mention some of them and how do you tackle them?
I think that's the best question to ask. I guess speaking to Girl Up members who are also advocates, and in different way. I'm also a youth activist, and I started being kind of a voice that speaks out against all forms of violence against women and girls around the age of 18, 19, because until that time you are slowly learning and you're experiencing different things, but also understanding how do we speak out, how do we advocate for what we believe is right. So in my journey from 18, 19 to 28, 29 now, over the 10 years, what I've experienced is the kind of negative stereotyping we have, at least from the culture or the country that I come from, towards activists and advocates, is that they always shout and do protests and ask for all kinds of things that's not possible when there are thousands of issues that are happening. But I think it's also about how much confidence you have in yourself to speak out for what you are passionate about. And speaking out for gender-based violence for me is not only speaking out for what I have faced, but also for so many more girls and young women and women around the world, not just from Sri Lanka or from South Asia, but as we know, no country in the world have really achieved gender equality. So we know that there's so much more work that we have to do. So as activists, you come across so many barriers, structural barriers, institutional barriers, but also, a lot of stigma, stereotyping, and also barriers because of the kind of negative myths that people have in their minds and their perception towards activists. But if you really believe in the cause that you're working towards, then you will definitely find how to overcome and break those barriers and move ahead. So, and that's exactly what I did, in my own capacity, and the people that I work with, we march forward because we know that our voice matters and we must speak out for not only our rights, but for everybody's sake.
Amazing. Now, can you just tell me how did you use social media to prevent gender-based violence?
I think social media is something that probably we have to look at, the two sides of the coins, right? Because
Yes.
we also speak about social media, and especially in this day and age, we know that we use it so heavily. And there is also harassment and bullying that happens within social media, which we are fighting against too. But at the same time, I think we also need to understand that it's a platform. It's a tool that we can reach out to so many people. So I believe in social media for social good. There are so many girls, young women, young people overall who are actively using social media for social change. They use their voice, their power to really communicate something that needs to be communicated. And people probably might not have that education through formal education. But because through social media, they have access to the kind of information that needs to go to them about how to prevent gender-based violence. And one example that's closest to today is during the pandemic, how we saw an increase in domestic violence and how people were confined into places because of lockdown and the rate of increase in gender-based violence. And we used social media to do a campaign to communicate to people about this, services that they have, how to report these cases, and then, afterwards, survivors, what the process is. So we used social media to kind of communicate that campaign because we also ourselves couldn't get out because of the COVID-19 pandemic situation. But we used that platform to communicate the message that we want to get out there. At the same time, we also have to be mindful about, and make sure that social media itself does not become a space which is unsafe for people.
Yes.
That we speak out against harassment and bullying that happens within social media. So I think it's about how we use that platform for social good.
Of course. So now we have a question from one of the audience. Like, do you think that sexual education could be a solution for bodily autonomy? And if yes, can you just explain how can we adopt this kind of education?
As a advocate and activist who've been working in the education per se, because I believe education is key to address most of the global issues that we try to tackle today. And I think comprehensive sexuality education has been a topic I'm sure right across the world people have been working towards to really improve in terms of delivery, in terms of content, on how it reaches young people. So rightfully, I think, your question itself has somewhat the answer also, because through that education, we are able to address so many areas about sexual and reproductive health and rights, but also bring in the aspect of gender to it, about gender-based violence to it, and, all of this interrelated kind of topics around that. So from my experience, I know that during my formal education in the school, I did not receive comprehensive sexuality education because that's a chapter, the teachers would,
Yes,
slowly kind of flip over and move to the other chapter because
very
the
fast.
word sex itself is a taboo topic in my, in
Yes,
my country. And I think most of us coming from most of the global south could relate to that because that's the kind of perception
yeah,
people have, attitude. But I think how that could break and we could improve or progress is through comprehensive sexuality education, because if we have strong content in our school education, and also if the teachers are well trained to deliver it to the students, then we are able to really take the topics that we really want to discuss, and in an age appropriate way be able to deliver that education to people from very young age to young adults.
Thanks. Thanks for your perfect talking. And just I want to say thanks for the audience for their attention.